Hello, Southern California, and welcome to this week's edition of Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. He is the founder and president of Mosley Wealth Management, and I'm your host, Kristen Oakley. We're so glad you're joining us today. The reality is that times have changed. Are you prepared to navigate to and through your retirement successfully? We've got a bunch of topics we're going to cover today along that theme. Tom, my friend, always good to be here with you. How are you this week?
I'm doing well. Always great to be with you, Kristen, seriously.
Well, likewise. I feel the same way, and we appreciate you all being here with us. We know that so many of you are watching and tuning in week after week. We appreciate you being here. And as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about timing today. There's a lot of things that can pertain to this theme of timing with retirement planning, but we wanted to start today with Social Security. And here's the reality. It used to be that previous generations could count on their Social Security, and for the majority of them, also a pension to provide that guaranteed income for themselves throughout their retirement. But times have changed. We know that pensions have gone away and are often a thing of the past. And there's several changes that have happened with Social Security, even with just the last 10 years, that a lot of folks aren't aware of. So can you shed some light on what some of those major changes have been?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there was a time 10, 15, 20 years ago plus, like when our parents were going through retirement, it was a three-legged stool. You're right, Kristen, it was pension, it was Social Security, it was your own savings. Now we know that savings are at a historically low overall. The 58% of the people over 55 years of age have less than $25,000 saved for retirement. So really the savings is not there with a lot of people. If you've got more than $28,000, then you're really in good shape, you know, and stuff, or $25,000, you're in really good shape. Social Security, they're telling us that by 2033, it may be reduced to 79% of the payout. And then pensions, where'd the pensions go? You know, they disappeared because 63% of the people had a pension that covered them in 1970, and now 1 out of 6 people have a pension that cover them, 16%. So drastically changed environment. It is just really a different landscape than it was. Yep. What happened? You know, how did it happen? Well, it wasn't like an overnight, you just wake up and poof, it's gone. It was a gradual thing with the pensions. What happened was in 1978, they came out with 401ks, you know, the greatest thing in the world. And it was a defined contribution plan. And the companies contributed and you contributed and you had your 401k and you could build it. Well, you know, the company started looking at it and said, since we're giving them a defined contribution plan, let's take away the defined benefit plan of the pension. So they eventually went away. And then with Social Security, it's not just that maybe they're only going to be able to pay out 79% by 2033, but they began to chisel away at different things. There used to be 567 ways that a couple could take their Social Security benefits. Yep. Now it got chopped in 2015, the last year of the Obama administration. They passed a cleaning bill where they cleaned it up, and they cleaned up a lot of loopholes. And what they did was they took out more than half of the options that people had for Social Security. So there really used to be a term, maximize your Social Security by taking advantage of all of those loopholes. But what they've done is they've gone in and they've chopped off all those loopholes, and so now it's not so much the maximization of your Social Security, it's more an optimization of it, that you really need to take it at the best time, and there's where the timing comes in. Yep. Now it's not so much knowing the latest trick or which trick might work best for you, because they've taken out most of the tricks, but more now it's the timing for you as to other factors that are involved in your life.
Well, and even though they did away with a lot of those loopholes, you know, I remember I was traveling nationwide at the time and presenting on Social Security and talking about all these different strategies that were available at the time. To your point, Tom, there used to be over 567 mathematical combinations of how someone could claim Social Security, but now there's only 200. And I say only 200 kind of jokingly, right? Because it's still confusing, it's still complex, and I think that's the number one question that I know a lot of folks ask you, right? Is when is the optimal time for me to claim my Social Security benefit?
Well, several things, and be careful the advice you get. I mean, all of our advisors at Mosley Wealth Management take a course. It's the only proctored syllabus course there is on Social Security that anybody that I know of is aware of in the United States. It's with the National Social Security Advisors Association. They're out of Cincinnati, Ohio, and it's like a 19-module course. You take a proctored exam. All of our advisors train with that. You say, why is that important? Well, you know, if it's 43% of the average American's income in retirement, it's really important if we're giving advice on it that we know what we're talking about. So we take that exam, and we know every other year we take that exam to stay up to date with all of the changes that are coming about just on a regular basis. Now, there's one advisor that up until at least a couple of years ago, I was still having people come into my office, and they were coming in, and why do they come in? Because this year we're doing over 100 Social Security workshops alone in Southern California.
Live event workshops where folks can actually come and learn more in depth, and it's such an awesome resource that you're providing.
It is, and they get to meet with us. They get to ask their questions. They come in and they ask their questions, and we have guys coming in and ladies coming in and saying, well, this other guy was telling me about file and suspend. Wow, that went away in 2015. Mm-hmm. And they were talking about the restricted applications that husband and wife can play off of each other's Social Security. Wow, most of those went away in 2015, but they're still being taught, and they're still being told to people that you can still do those things. It's really important that when you're getting advice from somebody who knows what they're talking about, who knows how Social Security really works. Now, here's what's really important, and I can't drive this home well enough because so many people get their information from Bob at the water cooler or Sally in the break room, and I pick on Bob and Sally all the time, especially when it comes to Social Security, because people come in and they say, well, Bob told me or Sally told me that I work with. And you know what? Bob and Sally are not liars. Bob and Sally are not telling you something that's not true. It's just maybe they've gone through and they've figured out the optimal time for Bob and Sally to take their Social Security. And if you'll talk to Bob and Sally together, most of the time you'll find out that it's a different time for Bob than it is for Sally. Here's what I'm driving home. Your Social Security, just like your Social Security number, is different than anyone else's Social Security as to the optimal time for you to take your Social Security. So, you know, you've got to know when it's best for you.
Well, and the answer is it depends, because it depends on so many personal factors. That's why we could never on this show say in a blanket statement, this is the optimal time for you to take your benefit. There is no substitute for really sitting down in the financial planning environment and figuring out what that means for you, and especially for your spouse if you're married. So I'm curious, Tom, because I know that Social Security planning is a huge part of what you do for folks. It's one of the cornerstones of building the income plan within the retirement blueprints that you build for folks. How does that conversation start? When folks come in and they have this burning question of when is the optimal time for them to claim Social Security, walk me through what that process looks like.
Okay, when you first come in and you start talking about your Social Security, we're going to treat your Social Security as though your whole retirement is a puzzle. And your Social Security is the outline of the puzzle. You know, when you get a puzzle, you start, and most people, I know very few people who don't start, but some people start with colors, but most people start with the edges because you know the flat pieces.
Yep.
Well, Social Security, most people have it, and we've got to get that right. So we start by asking you questions. And some of you may be saying, well, I don't have much Social Security. You just got a little puzzle, okay? And you say, well, I've got maybe the maximum Social Security. Well, you've got the big 1,000-piece puzzle, but you've still got a puzzle, and you've still got to get that outline right. How do you get the outline right? In answer to your question, Kristen, you get the outline right by we start asking you questions. Are you still working? Are you going to work after 62 before you reach full retirement age? You could put yourself in jeopardy to have to pay back a big chunk, if not all, of your Social Security if you on your own decide to take it early before full retirement age. So it's really important. How long are you going to work? When are you going to retire? What other assets do you have? What kind of income flow are you going to have in retirement? You say, What do you mean by income flow? Do you have a pension? Do you have rental income? And then do you have Social Security? And if you're married, are both of you going to receive Social Security at some point in the future? That's just a few of the questions. And we start asking, and just like the puzzle is not complete, I mean, you feel like it's a great victory when you get the out realm of the puzzle done, the edges of the puzzle done. But you're just really getting started with the full financial plan. But you've got that outline in place. That's your Social Security. Now, you can't afford to do this wrong. You can't afford to take wrong advice, whether it comes from Bob or Sally at the water cooler or in the break room. You can't afford to take wrong advice from some advisor who doesn't really stay up to date with Social Security. And more importantly, you can't even go to Social Security office sometime and get good advice from them because they're told to just give out information, not to give out advice. So you need to search out somebody who trains in Social Security like we do at Mosley Wealth Management. We can get your Social Security set. You can do several things. The very best thing would be for you to call in. Kristen will give you the number in a moment, and you can get an appointment with one of our all-star advisors. We can take Social, get the rim put into place, and look at everything else on your retirement blueprint. But even at that, if you don't want to do that, at least go to our website, click on the tab that says Seminars, and come to one of our workshops in your area so you'll get 1 hour of teaching of solid, truthful information on Social Security. And we end that session every single time with a whole list of questions you need to ask yourself to be able to take the optimal choice on your Social Security.
Tom, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, again, that website to visit so that you can look at when there's going to be a live event in your area is mosleywealthmanagement.com. That's MOSLEY wealthmanagement.com. But as Tom said, there's never been a better time for you to come in and sit down inside the financial planning environment to answer this very important question for yourself. And as we mentioned, the Social Security information can only give you information. The Social Security Association, they cannot give you advice based on your individual situation. The only way you're going to be able to get that is by coming in and sitting down and meeting with one of the all-star advisors from Mosley Wealth Management. So this is completely complimentary to you. We encourage you to reach out. All you need to do is call that number on the bottom of your screen, 866-709-1462, or you're welcome to scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. As part of that complimentary retirement blueprint, you're going to be able to walk away with your very own Social Security optimization report. We'll be back with more on this important conversation regarding how times have changed and what that means for you right after this.
My company now, we're up to 12 people, and we have 6 advisors and 6 support staff. Our main office is right across the street from Anaheim Stadium in Anaheim, right above the Partners Credit Union. We're on the 2nd floor above that, but we have a satellite office now in Glendale, north of downtown LA. Out east, we're in Chino, and then down in San Diego, we have a really quickly growing office down in Scripps Ranch. We're still a little bit like mom and pop. We don't just like our staff and our employees. We love them. We have lunch together. I bring in lunch on Mondays, and we spend about an hour just talking about the weekend and talking about life with all 12 of us that are there. There's some businesses where everybody pulls together and where everybody pulls their own way. It's definite in our company that everybody pulls together. We care about each other. It blesses my heart to see a couple of my new advisors come in on a Monday and they're talking about the fact that they took their wives out together, the four of them, and went out for dinner on a Saturday night. In fact, one noted person told me recently, he said the chances that somebody would start a business and in your area and get to where you guys are at Mosley Wealth Management is about probably 1 in 50,000 because of the success we've had and the focus we've had on working with people to make sure they don't run out of money.
Welcome back to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. I'm here with Tom. I'm Kristen Oakley, and today we are talking about the fact that times have changed and what that means for you. If you're just joining us, we were just talking about Social Security and how it can be very complex into going into figuring out how to optimize your Social Security benefit. But there's something else that has changed in our times today. There's a lot of folks out there who are do-it-yourself investors. But just because you can do a lot of this on your own, does that mean that you should really be doing this on your own? And that's what I'd love to get your opinion on, Tom. And really the inspiration for this segment comes from this Vanguard study that was done. This was very eye-opening, and Vanguard did a study on the benefits of using a financial advisor. Before we comment about that, I just want to say I think it's very fascinating that Vanguard did this because Vanguard, one of the world's largest money managers, is predominantly used by do-it-yourself investors. And yet, they had no skin in the game, if you will. They concluded that there are a lot of benefits to working with a financial advisor. So can you comment a little bit more on this study and your take on it?
I've been doing this 30 years, okay? In June the 8th of 2025 will be 30 years from when I first started. And most people in this business last, what, 6 months to a year, and then they go work at a service station or something, but nothing wrong with that. But they just go on to other things. And in that course of time, without doing a scientific study, I have seen so many people who they're do-it-yourselfers, and they come in to talk to us many times, and they're looking for confirmation bias, okay? They're looking for us to tell them that they've done a great job.
Right.
I remember one guy came in and he said, you know, I got out of the market, and I got out of the market in 2007, and I didn't lose very much at all in the 2008 downturn, and I've done so well, and I started in 2009 just gradually investing my own money, and I have doubled my money since 2009, and this was like 2 years ago in 2023, and in a nice way, in the course of 3 meetings working with this couple, and I didn't want to embarrass him in front of his wife. Right. But while he has doubled what he had since 2009, the market itself has 6 times what it had in 2009. So a lot of times people come in and they're do-it-yourselfers and they've got their spreadsheets and everything, and it works really, really well. And I'll tell you where it really works, Kristen. Okay. It works during the accumulation phase. Yes. Because basically, if you've got a 401k or you're putting money into an IRA and you're doing that on a yearly basis, a monthly basis, but you're consistently giving to that, and you just leave it alone. The market goes up, the market goes down, but overall, the market goes up drastically over a period of time. At least it has in the past 30 years. And we've had some serious downturns, a couple of 50% downturns, several 30% downturns, multiple 20% downturns. But if during that accumulation phase, if you'll just leave it alone and not take it out and try to time it, okay, you will be okay because the market will give you a ride. But then Vanguard said what? Give them the stats.
Okay, so these stats are really eye-opening. That came out of that same study, and this is what Vanguard showed, that over a 25-year period, the do-it-yourselfer will see about 50% less growth than someone who's working with a financial planner. Now, 50% sounds like a lot. Let's put this into monetary terms to really bring it home, right? So here's what they found. $500,000 self-managed will grow to $1.69 million over 25 years. But $500,000 using a financial advisor will grow to $3.4 million over that same 25-year period. That's a staggering difference.
Can I drop the mic?
Exactly, right?
You understand what I'm saying? Because that's Vanguard, the king of self-investors, saying that you would have had more than twice as much money over 25 years by allowing a financial advisor to help you as opposed to doing it yourself. And I'll tell you what, there is so much stuff that they throw at us. Who's they? Congress, the IRS, regulations, taxes, so much stuff, Social Security changes like we talked about some in the first segment, all kinds of changes that come our way in the financial service industry. It's not all we can do, but it's a lot for us to stay up with those changes.
Yes.
And if you miss out and you're not informed and you're not doing it on a consistent, almost daily basis as a do-it-yourselfer, you're going to miss the boat. And here's the problem. Nobody misses it drastically. But there's about 12 or 13 different things I've seen on some studies where if you miss it 4% here and you miss it 5% here and 2% here and 7% here, by the time you're 25 years into it, you've missed 50% of the growth that you could have had.
Yes, and here's what I think is so interesting. Those figures took into account the financial advisory fees as well. And the study also showed that it wasn't just the money that was managed, the investments that a financial advisor was able to provide value in. There's so many other areas of financial planning and value that you're able to provide to your clients. And I think sometimes folks are hesitant to work with a financial advisor because they say, I don't want to pay the fee if it's something I can do myself. But this study proved that even with the fees, working with a financial advisor helped someone come out on top versus someone who's doing it themselves. And I think too, Tom, there's a transition that happens. Sometimes folks during their working years, maybe they've enjoyed it. Maybe it's been a hobby, and when they're first retired, they're really enjoying doing it themselves. I think there comes a time, though, because if you're going to do this effectively, you have to be watching the markets all the time. And some people are going, you know what, it might be time for me to hand over the reins. So if someone who's watching right now has been a do-it-yourselfer and they're going, yeah, I think it's kind of time for me to pass this on to somebody, what would you say to them?
I would say Chuck. I had a guy named Chuck 8 years ago. He came to us and he gave us a little piece of his pie, and he said, here, work with this. I want to see how you do. And about 6 months later, he brought a stack of papers about probably 6 inches thick into a meeting, and he dropped them on the table at in the conference room, and he said, here, I am tired of doing this.
Yes.
He said, I retired and I thought I was going to have a great retirement, but I wanted to do it yourself. I wanted to do a little bit of day trading, and I wanted to watch my own stuff. And he says, you're killing me. He says, you're doing so much better than I am. And he said, I am spending from 6:30 in the morning when the market opens until 1 o'clock in the afternoon when the market closes. And he said, here, take it. And Chuck, you watch the show. I hope you're watching this one, okay? Because you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're in that situation, that's where you need to call us. That's where you need to get on our schedule. Let us show you at least what a real complete retirement blueprint for you will look like, and we'll do that for absolutely free.
For no cost, no charge, no obligation. It doesn't get better than that. Thank you, Tom. So our viewers at home, that number to call is there on the bottom of your screen, 866-709-1462. Or again, you're welcome to scan that QR code, and that will get you connected as well. You don't have to go it alone. The team of Mosley Wealth Management would love to be able to provide you with the help and service you need and add value to your existing financial situation. We'll be back with more right after this.
Fiduciary is a big word in our industry, and fiduciary means you act in a client's best interest. At Mosley Wealth Management, you are an individual. You're different than anybody else on this planet. You look different. You've got a different social security number. You live at a different address. Everything about you is different. The first visit is just getting to know them, getting to know where they are. We literally start with a blank legal pad. And at the end of that meeting, we just say, okay, you've brought a lot of stuff here. Do you want us to look at this stuff and see what we would recommend? And when I look at statements that people bring me from so-called fiduciaries, and I ask them, I say, why did you get put 50% in this and 50% in this, many times they'll say, well, that's what the advisor said he likes to do. My question is, would I do this for my mom? Would I do this for my dad? Would I do this for myself? So you really have to sit back sometimes and say, if I were them, if I were sitting on their side of the table, what would I do? And I've literally sat in my office at least once every 2 or 3 weeks and try to put together a case for somebody where it's iffy as to whether they'll make it or not. And you have to ask yourself, what would I do if I were in their situation? And never, ever recommend something that you wouldn't do if you were right where they are.
Welcome back. We're so glad you're joining us today. I'm Kristen Oakley here with Tom Mosley, and we started off today's conversation expressing the fact that times have changed. And for a lot of folks, that means that pensions are often now a thing of the past. But that being said, Tom, I know you still work with a lot of folks throughout Southern California who do have a pension. It's a very important piece of their income puzzle. So how do you go about helping folks maximize their pensions and figure out the best way for them to receive that pension income?
Well, we start because every pension needs to be thoroughly analyzed. You know, it's not just, hey, I've got a pension, what do I do with it? Well, what's the payout on that pension? Is there, let me give you the questions that we would ask. Is there a lump sum option on that? If you take the pension, and you take it either on your life or you take it on your spouse's life, generally you die and your spouse dies, the pension's over. So I've used the illustration for years. If you decide to go to Bora Bora to celebrate your retirement and you've got a pension and you just took it and you take 2 months of pension, you and your spouse are in the plane, you're going to Bora Bora and you don't make it to 𝗂𝗶𝗄𝗃, then your pension goes away with you. So a lot of people want to take that lump sum. Here's one option. Take it and put it into another annuity, because that's what a pension is. You put it into a fixed income indexed annuity, and that allows you to get a payout for as long as you live. Then it survives you to your spouse. If you've used all of your money and you're down to zero, then your children don't get anything, just like with the regular pension. But if you're on your way to 𝗂𝗶𝗄𝗃 and you've only taken 2 months, your children, your heirs, get whatever's left into the pension. So there's ways to do that. You say, well, do I take the big amount for myself or the smaller amount for myself and my spouse? Well, that depends. Are you healthy? Many times we're able to get a life insurance policy on you for about half of that gap. And it's called pension maximization. So you take the larger, spend about half of that money on that life insurance that will pay your spouse maybe $500,000 if you pass away, and you continue to take the pension at the larger amount for as long as you live. Just like Social Security, just like a financial advisor, just like a pension, you need input from a professional. And that's what we offer you. By watching this show, we offer you a retirement blueprint. If you'll just call and get on the schedule of one of our advisors, one of our 5 offices, we can help you.
Tom, I'm so excited for more folks to get to connect with you as a result of today's show, so thank you so much. And to our viewers at home, again, that number to call to claim your complimentary retirement blueprint is 866-709-1462. The team of Mosley Wealth Management is here to help you navigate these changing times successfully. Be safe, be happy, be blessed. We look forward to being back with you next time here on Right on the Money with Tom Mosley.